attempts to become part of the country throughout many decades, with Soviet Russia's founding leader stressing the importance of maintaining economic and political ties with the region. RT's Ilya Petrenko has the story.
Did you know that a few years ago, any syllable that had a communist background had to be erased from the map of Ukraine? That's thanks to laws passed by the people that came to power in 2014 when a pro-Russian president was overthrown by a Western-backed movement. So the result was a post-Soviet country with 0 Soviet names of streets or towns, you name it. It's pretty obvious the move was to distance the nation from Russia, but I won't go into much detail right now. Some couldn't help pointing out the irony.
Modern Ukraine was entirely created by Russia, more precisely Bolshevik Communist Russia. The process began almost immediately after the revolution of 1917.
When the Russian president spent almost an hour explaining Moscow's decision to recognize the independence of the Donetsk and Lugansk regions, together called Donbass, some viewers were like, when did Putin all of a sudden become a history teacher? Well, it seemed he was very keen to explain to the world that you can't deprive millions of people from their past, especially if their country actually exists thanks to that past. But if you think Mr. Putin was simply trying to spin history his way, have a look at some documents from the archives that have been revealed to the media. They're more than 100 years old.
These are authentic documents, some of them written by Lenin's hand.
First, let me quickly explain where the word Donbass comes from. Donetsk Basin, a coal-rich region just to the north of the Sea of Azov, historically a giant hub of the coal and metal industries. A stark contrast to the rest of modern Ukraine, mostly populated by farmers. So let's read into these brown, well-aged papers. Believe it or not, Donbass was included in what used to be Soviet Ukraine twice, only thanks to decisions by the world's most famous communist, Vladimir Lenin.
Is there any evidence in the documents that the Bolsheviks tried to take into account the interest of the people who lived in these territories? Did they ask what people thought? Have you tried to investigate this somehow?
No, people don't ask. On the contrary, decisions were made in Moscow. What referendums could there have been during the Civil War? The main factor was strength.
In 1918, while the First World War was still raging and the Bolsheviks had just taken control over Russia, Vladimir Lenin was scratching his head over how to maintain the strength of his forces on the southern front.
I ask you to pay serious attention to the Crimea and the Donetsk basin in the sense of creating a unified combat front against the invasion from the west. As for the Donetsk Republic, tell comrades Vasilchenko, Yakov and others that no matter how they manage to separate their region from Ukraine, judging by the geography of Vinichenko, it will still be included in Ukraine and the Germans will conquer it. In view of this, it is absolutely ridiculous for the Donetsk Republic to abandon the united front of defense with the rest of Ukraine.
In a nutshell, while the communists in Donbass wanted to become part of the new Russian Soviet Republic, Lenin personally forced them to artificially unite with Soviet Ukraine, that is to comprise a stronger force in resisting the German invaders. Then, when World War I was over, memoirs show that initially Vladimir Lenin yielded to the will of the Donbass Bolsheviks to have the region attached to Soviet Russia. However, apparently when Ukrainian communists were able to meet Lenin face-to-face, they tried to persuade him not to deprive their newly born Soviet Republic of the highly productive coal and metal industry hub. And so again, thanks to Lenin, who changed his mind, Donbass was forced to unite with Ukraine.
Ilyich agreed. It was decided that the Donetsk Republic was part of the RSFSR. Less than 2 days have passed. I'm called to see Comrade Lenin. You and I made a mistake, says Ilyich. Ukrainians arrived shouting that we stole the last workers from them and they were left only with peasants. Let's solve it. Why offend them?
So, one way or another, the number one communist, Lenin, clearly kept attaching a historically Russian Donbass to Soviet Ukraine. Fast forward to the 21st century. Surprising, therefore, was the rush by the people who came to power in Kiev after 2014 to demolish all statues of Lenin across the country and rid Ukraine of anything that would remind it of its Soviet legacy. Even more astonishing or outright absurd was perhaps Kiev starting a full-on war against the Donbass people in 2014, who never wanted to live in a country so decommunized from its past. Although the Ukrainian government called their offensive an anti-terror operation to free the country of terrorists and foreign invaders. But who on earth in government offices or newsrooms in Europe or America would bother to even consider the existence of such important historic documents that I showed you?